Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Goodman, Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana, and we're here at 318 Latino Studios for Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home. And today's conversation, I know I'm going to learn a ton, and this is a guy I greatly admire. Our guest today is John Dean. John, thanks for being here.
Jeffrey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Well, John, I warned you this first question. I just need to set you up, so hang tight with me. But you have had a great career as a CPA at the accounting firm McElroy Vestal. But what I want to focus on today is how much you have done and continue to do for our community. Let me but graze the surface. Presently or formerly, you have been the Early Education Chair for the Committee of 100, Chairman of the Shreveport Chamber of Commerce, part of the Early Childhood Education Advisory Committee for Community Foundation, President of the Committee of 100, part of the Advisory Committee for VOA's Communities and Schools, President of Step Forward, and President of the Grayson Foundation.
I plead guilty to all of it.
So let's start here. You once said, I pulled this quote from you, you once said the following: if we're going to do anything to improve our community, we're going to have to put significant resources, time, and energy into early childhood education. So my first question for you today is, tell me a little, if you could, statistically where we are with early childhood education and why it's so important.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jeffrey. This kind of become a passion of mine. As I started to relax a little bit on the work front, got more involved in the Grayson Foundation. We're giving away a couple $1 million a year, and return on investment applies in that business just like it does in any for-profit business. And I really started dabbling in early childhood and doing some research on it, and it's just it's become a passion of mine. It really has. I started out doing some research through the Harvard has a Center for the Developing Child, and Johns Hopkins, Vanderbilt, there's several universities that have really good focus in this area, but he really helped me focus on the science of brain development. And the slide, I've just got it locked into my mind that I just refer to all the time, is this idea that, about 90% of brain development occurs before a child is 3 years old. When you think about that, it's kind of staggering. All this, I was an average parent growing up. I thought if you put a kid in front of Sesame Street for 20 minutes, you'd kind of done your job. But this serve and return, this goo goo gaga thing, even when you're in an infant stage, is very important. And you start doing all these neuro connections. The science is way over my head, but
explain that for a second, because I've heard you talk about serve and return. Talk a little bit about what that means.
Right. Well, this it sounds a little complicated, but it's really almost intuitive. When you have usually a parent, oftentimes a mother, but the relationship they have with that child, and when they're exchanging verbal sounds, sharing images and colors and those types of things, they're connecting, and the parent's responding and providing stimulus, the child's responding to the stimulus, and it's a back and forth, and it's all those things are firing off and creating those neural connections in the mind. And after about age 3, most of those pathways are built. What's even more disturbing, if you're 69 years old like I am, is they start going away if you don't use them. And I was one of the business community, like so many others, I think, that always lamented the situation that we have in K through 12 education. And it finally dawned on me that the real problem is the raw material that's coming into that system. Because if they're getting kids that are not ready for kindergarten, it's asking a lot to get them up to grade level, in 12 years or 13 years or whatever they serve. So to get back to the hard numbers on it, over 60% of the kids in Caddo Parish that are entering school, public schools, do not pass the kindergarten readiness exam. And that's a pretty staggering statistic. It's actually gotten a little worse. COVID's kind of clouded the data a little bit, but the truth is obvious when you start looking at those test scores that, we've got a lot of work to do. The good news is there's a lot of upside there. If we can just figure out, how to turn the tide, we can make a lot of progress. And I've been amazed through the Committee of 100 and the Chamber, business has really finally woken up to this thing. And, instead of complaining because we don't have employees that want to work and show up on time and all that, it's like, well, it all goes back to this same thing. And if we can't make some progress on this issue, it's just going to be a real opportunity lost for our city. I just hate it.
Well, we're gonna move forward in the development a little bit. So okay. I see advertisements in national newspapers like the Wall Street Journal about communities in schools, or CIS, as a lot of people know it. I understand that the Caddo Parish School Board has partnered with VOA, Volunteers of America, to implement this program in key schools in the parish. So my questions for you are you familiar with CIS? And if so, what's your impression?
Yeah, I was floored by it. I can't remember the founder's name, Bill Milliken maybe, or something along that line. A lot of this goes back to the Community Foundation and Paula Hickman. I'm going to give them a lot of credit today for a couple of these areas that we're going to talk about. But Paula, not many people would remember this, but Paula was kind of one of the founding fathers of the Lighthouse, which was an after-school program for kids that really needed some help. Very successful. The problem is it's a one-on-one thing, and it's very expensive if you try to bring it up to scale. So VOA, I think, was looking for some other options in that area, and Paula brought Bill to town. Communities and Schools, I think, it's in about 1,200 schools around the nation. They've had a lot of success. I think South Florida is an area where they started and flourished, and I think now they're in the South Texas area, a lot of communities and school networks down in the Houston area and that type of thing. And they're really showing results. And, their whole system is really trying to get these on-site coordinators to really get in touch and build, again, relationships with the kids that need it. And channel. Let
me just interrupt one second. So CIS, if I'm not mistaken, so Lighthouse is after school maybe, whereas CIS is during the school time.
It's kind of round the clock. Okay. And their whole idea is to coordinate all the resources that are out there. Kid needs medical, needs psychological, they need clothes, they need to take a bath. They're just covering the entire waterfront on this kind of a case management type thing. And it's a much more maybe comprehensive approach maybe than the Lighthouse. We still have Lighthouse in a lot of locations. It does a lot of good. But the beauty of Communities and Schools, it's not adding a lot of direct cost. You have a coordinator, and they're the traffic cop that's getting resources to these kids that they need it. And like I say, the proof's in the pudding, and they've been very successful over the nation. The Wall Street Journal is where I catch their full-page ads, and I see some of the people that comment about their successes that they've had, and they're nationally recognized types. So I give it to the VOA. We originally talked about setting up a separate Communities and School organization here. That's kind of their focus nationwide. And the more we talked about it, we said, God, this would be a great fit for Volunteers of America. So rather than create another entity, another round of overhead costs and all that, VOA stepped up and added it to their program, and it's just been a great relationship, I think, for VOA and for CIS.
Well, I'd be reticent if I didn't say this, or negligent, I should say. You mentioned Paula. Mm-hmm. We didn't have Paula on here because she was already done with Community Foundation, but we've had Christy on here, and I would say that Christy's, a great successor to Paula, and we've had Carolyn Hammond on here. We didn't have Chuck on here, but I would say Carolyn's been a great successor to Chuck, and hopefully, one of my hopes is when people hear this, that we have more successors to people like John Dean. So I'm just going to put that out there.
That won't take much.
That's not true. All right, so I'm going to shift you a little bit. Like me, I know you're very concerned about the future health of downtown Shreveport. So I want you to talk to me about where you see downtown Shreveport today and what we can do to ensure it remains vital from your perspective into the future.
Oh, gosh. I guess I go back to my first memories of downtown Shreveport. I grew up here, was born in Shreveport, and except for a few little 2 and 3 year absences, I've made it my home. And my father worked for Texas Eastern, downtown Shreveport. I don't know, many people probably don't remember the history of that, but Texas Eastern bought 2 pipelines after World War II that were used to transport oil from this area up to the East Coast. The Gulf was submarines and dangerous and all that. So they built these 2 pipelines. When the war was over, they didn't need them. They auctioned them off, and Texas Eastern bid on the pipelines and was the high bidder. And their idea was to convert them to gas transmission. And that's what they did. They became a publicly traded company. United Gas was not far behind them. So they were, almost every oil company, major oil company, had a physical presence in downtown Shreveport when I was a child. And I remember getting on the trolley. They didn't call them electric vehicles back then. That's what they were. And coming downtown, and Texas Eastern's in the building.
Where were you getting on? Like where were you?
Down in Broadmoor at AC Steer. Yeah.
Okay.
That was my jumping on point. And would ride downtown and get off and visit my dad. They're in the building where Arkley is, or CenterPoint Energy is today. That building was full of Texas Eastern employees. I remember they had a Morrison's cafeteria in the basement. And the courthouse square was like, it was Mardi Gras at lunchtime. I mean, people were literally elbow to elbow. You had Selbers and Levy, Jordan and Booth, all of the retail was there. There was probably...
Are we 60s? What?
Yeah, I'm born 1955, so this was in the early 60s.
Okay.
And that's a good call. I'd say 62 to 65, somewhere in that range. I bet they had 10 or 15 restaurants in that courthouse square loop. It was just a wonderful, energizing place to walk around, and it was I just remember being excited to be there. So, that's our pedigree and what we came from. And a lot of things have happened to drive this, and this phenomenon, I think, is happening all over the country. I don't think Shreveport's doing anything wrong. I think they're just, it's one of these mega trend things that's happening, but it's we've gotten from that point to the 80s when I was coming back here as a young CPA to work. We had just a boom of activity. There's a little miniature oil boom in that period of time. That's when we built what is now the Chase Bank building, what is now the Regions Bank building, which was Commercial National Bank. Chase was First National Bank. Louisiana Bank across the street where Capital One was built during that period of time. The American Tower, the green glass building. Bank of Commerce was built where the Beard Tower is today. It's changed its name. First Federal Savings and Loan Government Plaza. We did work with them, and I remember 2 sets of numbers just to put this in perspective. I think First Federal was built for about $18 million. It was later purchased for less than $2 million, not too many years after. The Regions Tower, Commercial National Bank, I think there was about $180 million spent on that building. And I think it sold for 20 or 30 million. I can't remember what the last transaction was, but it's it's just sad to see. I remember we were down on the end of Travis Street and seeing all this construction, thinking they were going to come grab our little building and gobble us up and build a 20-story tower on it. And it never happened. We kind of ran out of gas before we got there, but it was an exciting time. It really was.
And
now,
I do want to mention, if I'm not mistaken, so I said you were with Herd McElroy and Vestal. I believe you guys were always downtown, right? So you were office downtown this whole period.
We have been. We were at the end of the corner of Travis and Common. We owned a building down there. And not too long after they bought, when they built the Commercial National Bank building, we were growing and needed space. And, when you own your own space, that's hard to do. You hate to spend money adding on and all that kind of thing. So we ended up going to the Regent's Tower. It was the best move we ever made. That building was its own little hub of beehive of activity. I can't tell you how many times I'd get on the elevator with an attorney friend or something like that, and he's like, John, I need to talk to you about so-and-so and do this. Let's get together later this morning, drink a cup of coffee. And it's just fun stuff. I really enjoyed the times and all that. And then, you've seen some of the recent news, and I tell everybody now, it's when you walk out of our building, which is probably the biggest and busiest building in downtown Shreveport, at lunch you could fire a cannon down Texas Street and you wouldn't have to worry about injuring anybody. There's just nobody on the street, and it's a real loss. And
so how do we turn?
Well, I don't know. I thought some after you and I first talked about this topic. I remember going to something. It was probably around the time that Hazel Beard was mayor, or maybe Bo Williams, somewhere in there. We had one of these urban land planners that came to visit. He actually had a Shreveport connection. Maybe he was born there, but he was big time. He had done a bunch of work in the D.C. area and was pretty well respected and known. And the first thing out of his mouth was a statement that Shreveport we're about the same population, maybe even a little bit less than we were in 1970. We're over 4 times the geographic size. So when you start thinking about that, of course, it's obvious annexation, new building, you just got to drive around to see it and live it. But think about how many more miles of roads that is, and how many more miles of sewer pipes and water pipes, and all that's got to be maintained. And it's
that's an amazing stat.
Oh my gosh. It just, it kind of bogs me down thinking about it too much, because it's a hard thing to reverse. And, COVID kind of accelerated what artificial intelligence is going to finish off, I think, with, people having a lot more flexibility about where they work. And all that, it seems like to me, is going to, kind of diminish the importance of the urban center where there's just a million contributors to the situation. But the key, as you say, some of the things that's been done by Shrek and people like that, just to bring people downtown. And, we have made some progress on that front. And, I think we need to accept the fact that maybe, the business hub is not going to be what it was. And we need to concentrate on some of these other things, the living, entertainment, arts and culture, and all those things, and give people a reason to get back down here.
Yeah, I can tell you personally, just from doing this work, that I believe strongly that the downtown is our central nervous system and our spinal cord, and our city doesn't work without a strong downtown, or it doesn't work to its capacity or potential without a strong downtown. And so I'm hoping, my generation and the people coming behind my generation embrace that thought and buy into that and agree, because I think that's really important. And I feel very strongly that that's true.
You can do a lot of things over medium and media, but you really need a central gathering place to have a community. And I just thought I did mention every time I see you, I think of your mom in Cyport, and what an asset we've got that's just totally underutilized. And if we let some of those kind of things go, we're really going to regret it. We just need them too much.
I agree. Well, you mentioned it and I mentioned it. Mm-hmm. You are the president of Grayson Foundation, one of the largest private foundations in Northwest Louisiana. So talk to me a little bit, if you could, about some of the types of projects Grayson's looking to fund.
Glad you asked that. The Grayson Foundation, Sam Grayson died in 2004. The foundation existed at that point, but he spilled a lot of his estate money into the foundation. So it got us to a $40 million mark or something like that, which is a good size for a private foundation in the Shreveport area. The Board of Trustees, we've had a great group. They're not paid. We've got a great relationship with the Community Foundation. Again, I hate to drag them up, but you mentioned, Christie. They do a lot of our. We finally woke up to the fact they're doing a lot of the same things we're doing. I mean, they're looking at the same applications from the same people. They're trying to find things that are really making an impact and then increase their return on investment. So rather than duplicate what they had done, we use them, and they do a lot of our back office. Christy and Liz Laborde come to our meetings, contribute greatly when we're evaluating grant prospects and all that. But we're trying to, as I said earlier, just maximize the return on our investment, about $2 million every year. So you can do the math. Since 2004, we spent a lot of money, and we feel an obligation as trustees to be able to show a return on those funds. And it just seems like over the years, we've gravitated more and more to education because, so many of our issues come back to that. I mean, you get, I love hearing, I really miss Lamar Gorey and Keith Chrisman together because I think they were about the best 1-2 punch we've ever had. Lamar was a really good up front guy. Keith's that COO kind of tends to all the details and all that. I'm really looking forward to him getting his shot at being superintendent of Caddo Parish. But it's they just see in third grade, you can predict how much of that class is going to go to prison. I mean, it sounds harsh, but it's just numbers and statistics. And if you don't get those kids to realize their potential, it costs you on every front later on. Employees, prisoners, deadbeat parents, moms and dads, and everything that goes with it. It just all boils back to, developing an asset and not wasting it. And we've got to get some of these initiatives to really fire and to, get us closer to where we want to be in that area. I'm nuts about Christy. Like I say, we didn't miss a step at the Community Foundation, transitioning from Paul to Christy. She's really taken on, Step Forward was their initiative. We were a separate entity for a while, and then after a while, the same thing I mentioned earlier, we just start saying, well, why do we have two sets of entities and all the overhead and burden that goes with that? Let's just get it folded back into the Community Foundation. And Christy's really embraced that, and Carla Burgos, that's the successor to the other directors there, has done a really good job. And we've got some potential. This early education fund, the Community Foundation has helped us take advantage of a statewide match, where the state matches every dollar we have, and they've created all these scholarships and these Title III child care centers, which are basically subsidized child care centers, and just trying to make them better, because it's early childhood education and child care are not necessarily the same things. They can be, but child care can be babysitting. And as I said earlier, all this brain research tells us that you've got to get to these kids early and get them in an environment where they can develop fully to their potential. And
are you saying the early childhood education is more serve, receive, more proactive, more interactive than maybe your traditional child care? Is that? Yeah,
and I think I'll talk on the state level if I can do that for a minute.
Sure.
You
can do whatever you want.
I'm really proud of what, you and I have been around here a long time, and it seems like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas always battled out for last place in almost every category. Arkansas, in my opinion, has kind of run off and left us, so we're with Mississippi. But early childhood education is not an area where you can say that. Louisiana has been, I'm talking about cutting edge, nationally recognized for a lot of the work that they've done in that area. We started LA4, which is basically universal K4 for the kids that can't afford it. I think that was started in 2002 or 2003. 2012, the legislature enacted all the school readiness tax credits, which gives credits to like child care centers. The higher quality, the more incentive you receive. The people that are directors and teachers, that's a real tough spot because the teachers that are really good in preschool usually get hired by the Caddo system. It's better benefits, more pay, all those types of things. So trying to develop those people is a challenge, and the school readiness tax credit has a prong that kind of addresses that. And the thing that I've been excited about is there's a school readiness tax credit that's available to businesses. My little air conditioning company, for example, I can take $5,000 at year end and give it to Nancy Alexander that runs the Child Resource and Referral Center, which is a state, it's a state contract, I guess is the right way to say it, with Northwestern. It's up here because of Northwestern Nursing, and she's housed in their facility over there. But the Child Resource and Referral agencies, they help develop staff, give them training, help the centers with curricula and all that kind of stuff. So my $5,000 that my little air conditioning company gives Nancy and the Resource and Referral Agency goes to help all that early childhood stuff. And I get a $5,000 credit on my tax return. So it really doesn't cost me anything. It's the best return on investment you'll ever get because you don't really have a net investment.
Who should people contact? Because I know you gave a talk at Downtown Rotary about this. Who should people contact if they're
Nancy
here?
Alexander at the Child Resource and Referral Agency. Christy knows all about it, spends a bunch of time. Pick up the phone and call me anytime. It's I get active, probably swing into gear here in the next couple of weeks, getting that done. And we've had tremendous response from the business community. A lot of the only thing I think we've left on the table is I'm just not a good enough salesman to get around and visit enough people to get in there. We're probably raising $300,000-$400,000 a year or something like that. So you put that with LA4, the other school readiness tax credit stuff, Christie's match money at the Community Foundation. CCAP is a big, actually a federal flow-through thing, which is Child Care Assistance Program. It's a big pot of money that helps these people that are, in lower income levels that are really struggling to put their kid in quality preschool. Gives them scholarship and assistance depending on their income level and those types of things. So we've got a lot of really good things that are working toward this end game, and I'm really proud of the business community because I hear them. We're slow to pick up on things, but we get it. We're understanding this stuff, and I've never had a meeting with the chamber or the committee of 100 where you talked about this that. People they all understand it, the business community does, and they really want to support it. And this school readiness credit thing is just an easy way to do that.
Yeah, something that I feel like that doesn't get enough attention in this community that is overlooked and that I've discovered through this work is just how much collaboration is taking place in this community between the people who are really committed, really engaged, really concerned about the future of this community. Just how many of them are working together to try and solve these complex.
Yeah, and Step Forward really showed me, I got to work with visited a lot of child care centers, been to and gotten to meet and interact with a lot of people in our educational system. Like I say, it makes me feel horrible for some of the things I've thought and said about the school system, because it's full of people that are really trying to make a difference, and they're giving their heart and soul. And it's not an easy task. I tell them I say almost every time I leave a meeting that if I did this full time, it'd just eat me up. I mean, there's so many challenges, and as I said earlier, the cost of not developing these kids to potential it's waste. I mean, it just ought to make us all sick, and we just got to do a better job.
Well, and I love hearing and seeing that we're going deeper, and what I mean by that is we're trying to get to the root cause of some of these problems that we have.
Very much so, and like I say, it's not that we don't have the right people with the right heart and training and attitude. It's just going to take a lot of resources, and not just money, but time. And I'm really proud of, you mentioned Herb McElroy earlier, and they really, they've had a culture of community service for a long time, and I can't tell you how many things I was introduced to because of my firm. And we've got a group that does the tutoring for the communities in school out at Oak Park. That's our kind of adopted school. And it's another one of those things where, at first we thought we were doing them a favor, and the more, I talk to our people, you get twice back what you put into the deal. And seeing those kids, and I heard Keith tell a story the other day, Keith Chrisman, superintendent, about a kid that showed up at Burton, yeah. Chrisman's a Regions Bank. Told you I'm 69. These names things.
I knew what you're talking about.
But Keith tells a story about a kid that showed up for school this past fall, first grade or kindergarten, I forget which, and he had a nickname, but he did not know his name, first or last name. And when you hear stories like that, you're like, God, you can't expect the K-12 system to take a child like that and turn him into a Rhodes Scholar at age 17. I mean, we've got to start earlier. And the science says if you don't start earlier, it's kind of an opportunity missed. You can't bring it back. And so it's, I guess that's the reason I keep talking about early childhood education. The K-12 is very important, and communities and schools is really, I think, pulling us up. We've got, 12 schools that we're in for communities and schools in Caddo. And they were real smart about that. Again, this was a Lamar and Keith thing, but they started with, say, Booker T. Washington, and they started going backward to the feeder schools, the junior highs, and then the elementaries that feed those. And so that these kids have got access to communities and schools from grade 1 to grade 12. Which I thought was a really smart thing to do. And Caddo, the school board, has stepped up and provided some funding assistance, and VOA uses a lot of the money that they raise for that. And it's just really been a nice community effort, I think. And I'm looking forward to, to growing that into something even bigger and better. I really am.
Well, this isn't going to be an easy question, but I'm a force some self-reflection okay. here. So you had a great career as a CPA, and I see this all the time. You could have simply focused on your profession and your family and lived a good life. So my question for you is just, you're amazing and so admirable and so giving. So my question for you is, how did you learn the importance of giving back so much of your time to trying to make this community better?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. One of my favorite sayings, and people think I'm joking, but I really believe this. So many times I stand back and look at things and think I feel so fortunate that I didn't get the life I deserved. I got a really good situation. And Herb McElroy is probably where I would start with that. That I really had a great bunch of mentors, people like Pete Gaffney, Cody White, still around.
Cody's amazing. Cody's still, he everything I go to, he's there.
It's just unbelievable.
Who's the next one?
Bill Atkins, clients and friends. I just think about them. Just gave me so much guidance and, gave me encouragement to get involved and
they would say you should.
Yeah, Aaron Selber was another one. I could probably sit there and rattle off names for 20 minutes, but they, those are people that led by example. Bill Atkins and his group, bought General Motors here, and that wasn't an easy thing. And it's not a matter of making a phone call. Those companies have got to be sold, and they're going to vet the prospects, and you got to convince them this is a place to be. And I just think they did a great job. So that kind of inspired me.
Was it? I'm always curious. Was it osmosis, or did you feel a certain? Was there expectation placed on you? And does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does exactly. Entirely. I don't ever remember anybody ever saying to me, "Hey, you need to go do this." It's always they provided the opportunity, and as I said earlier, with volunteering for community and school, every time you do that, you get 10 times back what you put into it. I've met so many great people in all those different venues and the volunteer work, and it's just been a very rewarding thing. And I'm not ever planning on stopping on all that. I love the fact that nowadays I'm a little less in demand on the work front, which gives me time to focus on these issues, and I've still got a lot of support at the firm and the chamber, the Committee 100. All those organizations are, just always driving for this community, trying to make it a better place. And I hope we can continue that fight. It's not going to be easy, but the rewards are great, and you can't afford not to fight the fight, in my opinion.
Love it. All right. So I didn't tell you this before, but after this question, I will come back to you if there's anything I didn't ask that you want to get into. But my last formal question for you is, what are some of the things that make you optimistic about the community as you look out that we might be heading in a positive direction?
Some of the things I really like about Shreveport, we complain about heat and all that stuff, but it's really a great look at the day we have today, for example. It's absolutely beautiful. I heard at the beginning of the week that Barrow, Alaska saw a sunset this week, and they won't see the sun again until January. Now, that's a hard sales pitch. I'm glad I'm not in economic development in a place like that. So, Shreveport's got a lot of strengths. It's got it's a good geographic location. I think we suffer some as compared to East Texas on some of the basic statewide issues, transportation, education, perhaps being one. By the way, I did see where Caddo picked up
I saw that grade. Too. Yep.
A
B, right?
A B, and that's not bad. And when you consider our demographics and our population, we've got a very high percent of poverty in our population. I think that's something to be proud of, not to be satisfied with, because we've still got a lot of areas where we need to improve. But it gives me a lot of hope. I really like Cade Brumley, our state superintendent of education. He's from DeSoto Parish. He won't say this, but I've looked. Of course, I'm a bean counter, so I've looked at a lot of numbers and statistics. And our Department of Education, again, the state has taken leadership and is a standout in providing a lot of access to good information. If you look at the rankings of parishes from 1 to 64, there's a couple of others in there, but if you look at the ranking, there's only one system that I noticed that's really jumped significantly upwards. DeSoto Parish. And Cade won't take any credit for this, but, in looking back and talking to people about that, when the shale came in 2010, all government entities, particularly school boards, owned a lot of property. So they got a lot of economic benefit from that. I think DeSoto Parish was very strategic about what they did with that money. They built some really nice facilities. They went to pretty much universal pre-K, and just made a lot of other moves that I think have really paid big dividends for them. And I'm not going to pick on Red River Parish, but just for comparison purposes, Red River was in a very similar situation.
In terms of being a major beneficiary of shield monies.
They had a lot of, landowners. It was very rural. So, it was the income per capita, if you look at data like that, for Red River Parish it was booming, 2010 to 2016 or something like that. But they had the same windfall, financial windfall, and they gave across the board pay raises. And I'm not against that idea, but again, it's about return on investment. And I think if they had maybe spent their money more like DeSoto Parish did, they might have something to show in the all-important rankings between the parishes and all that. So, I look at things like that and say, you know what? Maybe we need to think about doing something just totally out of the box and investing. Maybe we need a millage for early childhood education. We've got economic development millages at the port and at the biomed, and voters have stepped up when they can be sold on something being a good use of money. And
that'd be a city or a parish millage?
Could be either one.
Okay.
Probably parish, because it's a parish-based thing, but you could do it any way you want to. It would qualify for some of this match money from the state, so you get additional leverage there. New Orleans has passed early child care tax, a millage, and I'll be anxious to see how all that goes. New Orleans historically has had a hard time getting traction and showing returns in some of those kinds of ventures, but I know Shreveport could do it, because I just feel like we've got so much good momentum already.
Is someone working on that?
It's it's a dream that we talk about, and this steering committee that the Community Foundation had. We had a really good thing with Step Forward. We had 2 or 3 years. We had meetings, and I was just shocked at the attendance. We had people, elected officials, people from the school systems, people from the state. The Louisiana Policy Institute I had mentioned today is, they're just really, really doing a lot for early childhood. Law enforcement was there. The business community turned out. We probably had probably close to 100 people each time. And I'm talking about people that really count and can really move things. And COVID kind of blasted that, and we kind of lost some momentum there, and we hadn't been able to fire that back up. But Christy's gotten a smaller group, this steering committee, back together, and that's where you dream about things like that. We've got a mayor that's very receptive to conversations, and he's not endorsing a millage or anything like that. But they understand the potential return, and they want to investigate all the investment opportunities. And I'm just very hopeful that, like I say, we can move that needle. When 60% of your kids are not ready to get into kindergarten, you've got lots of room to improve, and I think we can do it. I'm convinced.
Well, John, those were my set questions. We have all the time in the world. I could spend 20 hours with you and be super happy. And
I think you and I see a lot of things on the same view and all that. I have a trouble, when you're an accountant. I tell everybody I've got 40 years of training as a paid skeptic. So it's hard to be positive. But, you need to be realistic, but you also need to see the upside. And a lot of my business clients have taught me that. They have visions that I can't even imagine, and they make them happen. And so I like hanging around with people like you, because you're a little more out there in the vision front than I am. And it's kind of like the 1-2 punch I mentioned with Dr. Gorey and Keith earlier, that you need a lot of people like you and the Christies, the community foundations, pushing the ideas, and then you need people like me saying, that won't work, but maybe we can do it this way. And, eventually you get to a good spot. And that's why I enjoy working with the people, because me by myself just, I wouldn't be effective. Really wouldn't.
Well, anything else you want to get into?
No, I was going to look through here and just see I had a few little.
You want to show your visual aids that you brought with you?
I bought some things because I really refer to them a lot.
Show them just
okay.
while I've got you before I lose you, just because.
I was laughing with y'all earlier. I don't really have a briefcase anymore. I need a purse or something to put all this stuff in.
You retired officially when?
I went of council in 2011. I worked. It's kind of a gradual wind down thing. And, that's a nice thing. I didn't have a big walk out the door and it's over type thing. It was kind of a wind down situation. The community counts thing, it's got great data. And the very first page when you open
Annual report from Community Foundation, for those of you that don't know, that really studies other cities similar in size and demographics to us and compares us in many different areas.
Yeah, not just economics. It's, it's population, human capital, health, education, environment, the whole deal. But the very first piece of data in their publication for this year is population over a 10-year period. Shreveport's, these are 10 or 12 or 13 cities that are comparable to us: Jackson, Mississippi, Fayetteville, Huntsville, Alabama, Lafayette, Monroe, those types of things. We're the only city that shows a decrease in population over the 10-year period. Some of that is, out migration type thing that we were talking about earlier, where you just have people going to
the sprawl.
DeSoto Parish would be a good one. I heard a term. I guess it was in the Wall Street Journal maybe a week or so ago. They talk about, we used to talk about the suburbs all the time, and now they're talking about the exurbs, the further out than that even. Because people, a lot of people they're coming into work 2 days instead of 5 days, and they're working from home the rest of the time. So they can be further away. And that's good for them, and I'm sure that's a great lifestyle and everything else. But like you say, you've still got to have a sense of community and a way to bring people together and a format for doing that. And as I said a while ago, it's not going to be the central business district anymore, I don't think. But it needs some other type of concept for us to come together and, just share ideas. And I love it.
So you've got that.
Community Counts is there.
And I actually saw you, just for those out there, Community Foundation does an annual presentation for the public of their community counts. I saw John there this year. So
they're not trying to sell anything. They're just publishing data. And that's kind of that was a whole focus of Step Forward, really, is to let the data shine the light. And it tells you where you need to go if you'll just look at it. And then you don't need to hide anything, and it needs to be honest. But it's a good way to go. This Eric Brock is kind of a pictorial history of Shreveport, and I love this book. I pull it out all the time. My grandkids really enjoy it because you can show them. Well, this building right here, we drive by that every day, and it was this and this and this.
And Eric has a bunch of books. This one is Images of America, Shreveport. Eric J. Brock. Eric left us way too soon, but highly one of the greatest historians we've ever had in our community. Jim
Gardner was mayor of Shreveport probably by the time I was born. He was the head of SWEPCO, and it was one of those, he just never stopped being devoted to Shreveport. He was a great guy. And he wrote 2 books, I believe. But the thing I'd really like to have that I don't have, he used to give a talk called The History of Shreveport, the business history. And it was wonderful, about a 30-minute deal. And I don't know whether anybody ever captured that. It was kind of pre, cell phone recording where you could really get something like that easy. And if anybody's got one, I'd love to get a copy of it because it'd be a good thing. I'd love to show it to the firm, our new guys and my kids and grandkids and all that. It's kind of an interesting deal. So
there's an infamous talk too that he gave that I've shared before that I'll share again on the page. But it's an incredible talk about the history of our community.
It's just I really admire people like that. John Hussey's one that we talked about earlier. That's just, I see him on the porch at Corby's Golf Course restaurant, having a civic discussion with people all the time. He's just a great guy. Jim Gardner was, he met a lot of people and had really good conversations with a lot of people, big guys in the oil and gas business and all that. And, SWEPCO was if you wanted anything done in Shreveport, Commercial National Bank, First National Bank, Louisiana National Bank, SWEPCO, if you could get them on your side, everything else was downhill. And, we don't have that level of decision making here anymore, and it's kind of a shame.
I feel like, and I feel this way when I'm sitting with you, if I'm not mistaken, there's a great line in this speech I mentioned from Mayor Gardner where he's given different words of wisdom and different advice, and he says for him it was always really important to have friends and people in all these different generations that he would interact with. And sitting with you, we're not that far apart. I'm 51.
We're pretty far.
But it's so important for me, and I get so much out of sitting down with people like you who've done so much and seen so much. And I think ever since I read that passage in Mayor Gardner's speech, it's really pushed me to want to have younger friends and older friends, and it does so much to kind of widen your world.
Yeah, the youth is it's always energizing to me. I mean, y'all got so much more hope and energy for making that hope a reality and that kind of thing. And, I mentioned some of the business mentors that I had. Most of them were significantly older than me, but they were great guys, still are. And some of them are still around. You mentioned Cody, and I don't even want to guess at Cody's age anymore. He's still engaged in everything that he's ever been, and he won't let it go, and I don't want him to let it go. I think he needs to keep on.
Well, I'm going to stop you there, and I will say the way you talk about the Pete Gaffneys, the Cody Whites, the Aaron Selvers, the Bill Atkins, people are going to talk about you.
I doubt it.
I appreciate you being here, John, and
I
appreciate everything you are and stand for and do.
I'm in the process of going back and look at some of your prior podcasts. I really enjoyed the ones I did. So I hope we'll keep a library someday where we can come back. Yeah, the Goodman series was a pretty good program. It really was. So thanks for doing it.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks.
you.